This is about the article that appears on today, the island.lk English newspaper in Sri Lanka. An article where the former Catholic Church of Sri Lanka, Roman Catholic Church of Sri Lanka spokesperson, Reverend Cyril Gamini Fernando. In this article, Reverend Cyril Gamini Fernando says that the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation and also the CEYPETCO, Ceylon Electricity Board, CEB, has a staggering debt of nearly rupees 737 billion to the government, two state banks. That means the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation and the Ceylon Electricity Board had borrowed near approximately 737 billion. So it's not million, it's in billions. So that means in millions, it's about 737,100. That means 737,100,000 million. So that means 737 lakhs, nearly more than 7 lakhs million rupees borrowings of the CEYPETCO and Ceylon Electricity Board from the two state banks, that is Bank of Ceylon and People's Bank. So now, under these circumstances, we know that the Bank of Ceylon and People's Bank are like state banks, and they have contributed a lot to the development of the country from the time they were launched. So in this case, it's not a matter of privatizing the state banks like Bank of Ceylon and People's Bank, because there is a generations and generation, rather we can say evolutionary generation in that case, because not only one generation, there are tens and generations who have made their standard of living to today's level because of the Bank of Ceylon and the People's Bank. So these evolutionary generations, I would say, attribute their success in life, their families, everybody, their enterprises to Bank of Ceylon and the People's Bank. So, the answer is not privatizing the Bank of Ceylon or the People's Bank, but when we look at this, we know that the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation and Ceylon Electricity Board have a finance division, a finance and accounting division, which is the division responsible for negotiating these credit facilities from the Bank of Ceylon and People's Bank. So they also have their mini treasury inside the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation and also Ceylon Electricity Board. For that case, not only Ceylon Electricity Board, but the Ceylon Petroleum Board, but also big corporate companies in Sri Lanka like Singer PLC, John Keel's Holdings PLC, all these 8 can spends PLC. These companies have their own treasury, which is normally a treasury department is there only in a commercial bank or in a development bank or savings bank or etc. But here, treasuries are there in big Sri Lankan companies and also state enterprises like CEYPETCO and Ceylon Electricity Board to participate in the call money market. What they do is they buy overnight borrowing as commercial banks borrow. These big companies, private PLC companies, and also CEYPETCO, Ceylon Petroleum Corporation and Ceylon Electricity Board, treasuries also participate in the interbank call money market in Sri Lanka every day. So they borrow overnight or weekly. They can say, okay, today we want, they put an offer on the interbank call money market that operate on the basis of telephone calls rather, or it can be on the computer. And once they offer in the morning, that put an offer for a say they want a loan of 100 billion for 10 days. So then someone in the interbank call money market, probably a commercial bank's treasury department, a dealer would take it up, and then they try to get the 100 billion. They would borrow it from a small amount, 10 billion, 20 million, 15 billion, like not millions, billion, from other commercial banks, and put it together, and then keep a margin for that commercial bank treasury that organized this on their own, and they offer this 100 billion to the CEPETCO, Ceylon Petroleum Corporation, for overnight, like it's overnight lending. That overnight, or it can be 2 days or 3 days or weekly, or it's due in 1 week. Then this is called like a syndicated lending in the interbank call money market. And then when this is offered, the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation Finance and Accounts Division Treasury Manager accepts it, and then it been negotiated. At end of the day, the money by 1 o'clock in the same day, the money is transferred through the central bank, because that commercial bank has a current account with the central bank, and the Ceylon Electricity Board and the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation has their account with the state bank, Bank of Ceylon and the People's Bank. Then the money is transferred from the commercial bank through. What they do is they ask the others who contributed to the syndicated loan to transfer money to the particular bank that organized this whole operation, and they transfer it to their account, and then it goes to what happens is they really transfer to the Ceylon Bank organized, or Sampath Bank organized this 100 billion syndicated loan for overnight or 7-day lending. In the interbank call money market is normally short-term lending. So then all of the banks transfer that money to this Sampath Bank or Ceylon Bank, who organized this 100 billion lending to CEPETCO or Ceylon Electricity Board, to their central bank account, because every bank and also CEPETCO has a account with the central bank. So it goes to the central bank account, and then the central bank transfers it to the the Bank of Ceylon, because Bank of Ceylon or People's Bank, where the particular as requested by the Ceylon Electricity Board or the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation, so where their accounts, one account could be at the, or many accounts could be at the Bank of Ceylon, or many account can be at the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation. Then once it go to the bank, account maintained by Bank of Ceylon and also People's Bank at the central bank, then they get the money and they transfer it to their individual accounts. Bank of Ceylon's account has an account maintained by CEPETCO and Ceylon Electricity Board. Accordingly, People's Bank has an account maintained by Ceylon Petroleum Corporation and Ceylon Electricity Board, and it transferred. Then they by exchange it for US dollars, and order if it is Ceylon Petroleum Corporation, they open an irrevocable revolving letter of credit. That means every one month it automatically LC is open to be up to a Middle East bank, like say if it is Saudi Arabia or Oman, Bank of Oman, Saudi American bank, and it once say we want 50 billion worth of crude oil, and then once they ship it from Saudi Arabia, the refineries, ports, the Saudi American bank would confirm to Bank of Ceylon, in Ceylon Petroleum Corporation, Bank of Ceylon, and say, okay, please send, here are the documents, please transfer the money. So once the shipping captain's document of taking into custody the oil stock, that is called the bill of lading, the ship captains issued in Saudi Arabia to the crude oil supplier, saying that we have taken your oil into our custody. That receipt is called bill of lading, issued in copy. So that is transfers through the international swift telegraphic computer transfers to the Bank of Ceylon, and the bank and other documents, like it's up to a good quality, and other whatever the documents the CEPETCO wanted to ensure that the oil that had been dispatched meets the requirements and standard. Then if those documents are in favor, and if the CEPETCO the technical engineers and or chemical engineers look at these documents and verify what they want and had been actually shipped, they inform the Bank of Ceylon International Imports Department, and the Bank of Ceylon Imports Department's manager at that point confirms to the SWIFT international transfers, financial transfers to Saudi American Bank in Riyadh. In this case, please inform your supplier who have account with you that every document is okay, and here the money. And the money is transferred, and then since documents would come either maybe through courier or maybe through some other electronic means. If it is coming through courier, By the time ship comes, it had already arrived, because documents come through air transport. Somebody, they would transport it from UPS or FedEx or the United Parcel. It will come here. Then by the time when the ship comes, what happens is the captain informs the CEYPETCO, okay, we are in the Colombo, please take this. And the CEYPETCO then, their transport division will or their treasury department will submit the documents to the port, Colombo port. If it come to Colombo port, operations manager, and show we have a right to this stock that came from Saudi Arabia, and claim the oil stock. At that time, oil stock is transported to the pump into the sea rather terminals installed in the mid of the sea, through the pipelines to the refineries in Colon. Now it goes underground. So this is how it happens. So the situation is, in this situation now, the major problem is now the current staggering debt, according to Reverend Cyril Gamini Fernando, former Roman Catholic Church of Sri Lanka spokesperson, rupees 737 billion. So now I think there's no other way, because it's not possible to pay this to the People's Bank. Neither it will be possible for to pay it to the Bank of Ceylon under these situations, pandemic and declining vehicle imports, and no more crude import vehicles, which in Sri Lanka is transferring to electric vehicles. So how to and oil consumption is dropping from the Middle East countries, because oil prices are manipulated by America as a political issue to bring down the other countries' economies and make profits out of it. And Sri Lankan ministers also try to make a profit out of it, including the Middle East so-called rich, royal family princes, undermining their population's other needs, not providing any education to the population, Muslim population in Middle East countries, but accumulating wealth to the royal family members in Middle East countries. There's no democracy in Middle East countries. US talks about democracy. Well, before talking about democracy in Taiwan, Tibet, which are, and China or Macau or Hong Kong, please ensure democracy in Middle East. Why the US Congress is not worried about Middle East democracy, freedom, justice, before talking about freedom, justice, democracy in Myanmar. Right? Talk about the democracy in Middle East countries. They don't do, because they work together with the political, the royal families, so-called the families who run these Middle East countries. They take the profits out of the oil with the US companies, and don't provide education or any services to their civilians, and keep the population under ignorance, and thereby thrive. But due to the pandemic, according to nature's law, karma, the Gautama Buddha preach, due to the pandemic, everything went. It showed that every effect is based on a certain cause. Every cause results in effect. Causation is that means now Middle East economies are also going down because of the pandemic, and the oil imports by Sri Lanka and other countries are declining. And now in these circumstances, Sri Lanka's unpatriotic criminal ministers try to increase the oil prices, and then Middle East countries also politically together with America increases the oil prices now. But still, crude oil is not a good oil for world's climate conditions. So that is why transfer to electric energy, and Sri Lanka must not depend on renewable energy, but rather must go for a uranium nuclear plant or water reactor based nuclear plants, or all two, and hydrogen based nuclear plants, because that is the best way without depending on the Middle East. That is why America is not giving these things to Sri Lanka, and the Europe is declining this request by me continuously for a uranium nuclear plant, or a hydrogen based nuclear plant, or a water based reactor nuclear plant, because they want us to depend on crude oil. That is the reason. So nuclear general power generation is the only source. So I kindly request the Roman Catholic of Sri Lanka to request the European countries to help Sri Lanka to establish its nuclear power plants close to the Jaffna, so to ensure that there won't be further Indian type Easter carnages in Sri Lanka. Once there's a nuclear power plant in any of the northern province islands, India would know if they intervene, they would be rather scared because they know that if there's a nuclear reactor to their country, that's why they install a nuclear reactor in Tamil Nadu, close to Nigambu Chilao coast belt, because we are scared of it. Because if there's any accident or pretext accident in the Tamil Nadu nuclear plant, it will affect all the people first in the coastal Catholic area. So similarly, we can't remove it. Now it's in India. We must also establish a nuclear power plant in North, so to keep a balance on this. That is how things are done in modern geopolitics. And what I want to say is, with regard to the CEYPETCO and the Ceylon Electricity Board, the finance and accounts department must be converted into a commercial bank, two commercial banks, that is CEYPETCO Commercial Bank and CEB Commercial Bank, and separate the finance and accounting division from the these Ceylon Petroleum Corporation and Ceylon Electricity Board. And thereafter, these two banks, CEYPETCO Bank and the CEB Bank, must function independently, while CEYPETCO, the original oil importer, the refiner, and the distributor, storager, distributor, and the retailer must function independently. Ceylon Electricity Board must also have their CB bank, and also the original CEB, Ceylon Electricity Board, must function independently as a power generator, transmitter, and also retail seller, and also billing agency, and also street light provider. So this way, then they must then have their different accounts and audit departments later, all right? And these two banks must then receive the salaries. They must look into the aspects of paying the salaries for the CEYPETCO workers, CEB workers, and not only that, opening the foreign import LCs with the Middle East countries, and also Ceylon Electricity Board, the total responsibility to manage the salaries for the employees and supporting them, incentives for the engineers, and new projects to power plant projects. Everything must be done by to finance through the CEB bank, because we have seen recently during the pandemic there were huge salary hikes for CEBM employees, because they are a monopoly. They demand salary hike. If the government don't give them, what will happen is that they will go for a strike. Then the whole country is under blackout. This is what happened during President Chandrika's time. When the CEB demands are not met, they go on strike. If they go on strike, the whole country is on blackout, because they are a monopoly. They control the whole market, right? So under these circumstances, if they want salaries, let them be paid by the CEB bank, because they are CEB bank only will be responsible for all payments of oil purchases from the CEYPETCO, Ceylon Petroleum Corporation. CB Bank would have to pay. And not only that, they will have to pay the salaries of the CEB employees after getting the government annual budget allocations to the national budget, right? Appropriation for allocated to CB, that can come to CB. Then it is received by the CB, maintains a bank account with the CB bank. Ceylon Electricity Board's account will be shifted then, because their finance and accounts departments are separated into banks, and then all the finance and accounts department of CEYPETCO and CB liabilities to the People's Bank and Bank of Ceylon will be the will become like a loan portfolio of a CEB bank and the CEYPETCO bank to the Bank of Ceylon and People's, like two banks borrowing from each other, right? It's more stable then. Economy won't collapse, because CEB bank would takes over the liabilities of the CEB, Ceylon Electricity Board, since it form the borrowings through the finance and accounts department of the CEB. So then it is the CEB bank's liability there to another bank, Bank of Ceylon or People's Bank. Then it's more stable, because they have deposits also they would be receiving to pay the CEB employees to the CEB bank in future from the government national budget. So there won't be a problem then, because economy will be on sound reputed international practices, because it's a bank that holds the liabilities technically. Even though liabilities are high, loans are high, as Reverend Cyril Fernando mentioned, liabilities are high, but still it held in a CB bank, not by the CB, which is just a company. That's the situation. So internationally, Sri Lanka's financial reputation will come up based on this system. And similarly, CEYPETCO must deal. All oil import and letter of credits must be opened by the CEYPETCO bank, right? And they must receive the government, all the national budget allocations to the account maintained by CEPETCO in the CEPETCO bank, right? And then all this former CEPETCO's, finance and account division borrowings from the Bank of Ceylon and the People's Bank becomes the liabilities now of the new CEPETCO bank, right? And then it's also liabilities transfers to a bank. Then it's internationally, since liabilities are held, even though it's staggering, according to Reverend Cyril Fernando, even though it's staggering, still it becomes more safe because it's in a bank, not to a corporation or a board like CEPETCO or CB. So this way, I think Sri Lanka, I have proposed this in 2013 even, but it was not implemented by the government. So I think the government must do this to solve this problem. So then, this whole financial problem because of this huge staggering, loans from the Bank of Ceylon and the People's Bank could be resolved as without any problem, and gradually, these banks, two banks, CEPETCO Bank and the CEB Bank, can have a system, have a plan to cut off this lending portfolio is already there, so that's a huge portfolio. But then once it's a bank, it can ask for, it can get deposits from other customers in Sri Lanka, and then give loans and make profits, and then using those profits, since it's a bank owned by CEPETCO and the CB, CEPETCO Bank, CB, the profits would ultimately, since loans are not prepaid for a long period, after 3 months, according to central bank regulation, all loans not paid, any installment not paid for 3 months, transferred to non-performing loan category. So they are almost now defaulted loans. So those defaulted loans must be transferred at loss, and they must be set up against the new businesses from the CEPETCO Bank and the CB Bank. And that way, this problem can be solved in about 3 to 4, 5 years period.